Hello, and welcome to the State of Code Review 2024. So we're going to go ahead and get started in just 1 second. Hey, Meryl, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Kenny?
Oh, hold on. I think I cannot hear you on my end. Let me check this. Let's see here. Hello. Can you wait? Try speaking again.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep, I certainly can. Amazing. Great. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, okay. All right. Let's just go ahead and share this screen here. Perfect. Look at that. Beautiful. All right. So today we have an amazing presentation for you. We've been working really hard on this over the last few months, digging into kind of the all of the trends and current best practices in both software development and code review specifically for 2024. And we're really excited to share this with you. So the agenda for today is we're going to first look at the background, then we're going to go over the methodology on how we kind of analyze all of this data. We're going to dive into the report itself, and then we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end. So Meryl, I'm going to hand it off to you and take it away.
Fantastic, and thank you to Kenny for setting this up. And want to give a big shout out before we start to the whole team on data science and everyone who's helped put this report together here at Graphite. We've worked really hard for the past few months, pulling the fantastic data set that we have, analyzing that for some of these insights that we're going to share with you today. And we're super excited to provide really what's one of the most comprehensive reports that we've seen created about how companies create and review their code changes. And, this is something we've dreamed about doing since the very beginning of Graphite. It's one of the real one of the real things that we have that's unique to Graphite is the level of access and data that we have on how companies are reviewing code every day. And we're super excited to share our insights on this and hopefully help teams understand a little bit better how they can improve their practices in doing so. So let's with that let's dive right in. So a bit of background, just to set the scene, a bit of why part of why we wanted to look at this is that the way that companies are reviewing code and creating code is changing a lot in 2024 and for the past couple of years compared to what it has been historically. So if we look at the way that software engineering has worked, obviously one of the biggest changes that we've seen in recent years is the rise of AI coding assistants. We see 92% of developers are now using some sort of AI coding tool at work. More and more developers are turning to this. GitHub at the end of 2023 estimated that 46% of new code being written on the platform at that point was written with Copilot. At this point, it wouldn't be at all surprising if we were to say that over half of the code being written on GitHub now uses Copilot. So it's really like transformative what the impact of these tools has been. And really we're only seeing the beginning. I think something like 27% I think of Copilot suggestions were accepted the last time that they looked at this. So really only seeing the beginning of what these tools can do. And obviously, we think here at Graphite, we're thinking a lot about what the downstream impacts of such a profound change on the software development lifecycle are going to be. So if we look ahead to the next slide, a little bit more on kind of how big this change is. AI is really making developers more productive for some types of tasks. Really for like the small, simple, repetitive tasks where you can set like a boilerplate template and then have Copilot then fill in the rest for you. Developers are in general working. There's a study that suggested that Copilot was helping developers work 55% faster for some tasks, and create about 9% more pull requests using AI tools. So we have this high volume of code. We're seeing this across pretty much every Graphite customer that's using AI tools. And all of this now, now you have all these PRs that are being created, and all of this somehow needs to be reviewed as well. So increased code output increases the burden on the review side of things. It's not really, it's not anything that's new as far as the process goes, but it's such a higher volume of code than teams have ever had to deal with before, and it's really changing the way that we have to think about the outer loop of the development lifecycle. Like, how do we review all this code, test it, deploy it, make sure that we all know that like Copilot and ChatGPT can be error prone. There's some studies that are suggesting that it can often introduce security vulnerabilities. This is something pretty much every large enterprise conversation that we've had for the past 6 to 12 months. This is something that's come up of like, companies wondering how what they are going to do in the review side of things to really to make up for or to account for the amount of code that's now being written with AI today. And this is really something we're thinking a lot about. This is kind of the context in which we're introducing the state of code review report, and we obviously have something up our sleeve that we're really excited about. We've been testing. There've been a lot of testing internally a tool that really uses AI to help teams much more effectively review and test their code. It's something that we think because we already have a tool where engineers are reviewing code every day, where they're coming to every single day to see where their changes are in the life cycle. We have a really unique position where we can build something more compelling than just a GitHub comment bot that helps teams review more effectively. And we've been using this internally for the past few months, iterating it and refining it, working with some of our enterprise design partners, and we're super excited to introduce this more broadly this fall. We're not quite ready to share more of the details yet, but wanted to give you all something to look forward to in the coming months as we get ready to roll this out.
Yeah. And it's
Anyway,
so cool also to just see how far this has come. We were looking at some PRs and comments just from 6 months ago, and just looking at that net from now to then is it's a stark difference. So it's really cool to see this rolling out.
Fantastic. So, without teasing too much there, wanted to get back to focusing on kind of the state of code review research that we've done, and like how we see code review happening and evolving in the data set. So, methodology wise, we spent a lot of time, really looking at the data set that we have here at Graphite. And trying to pull out the most valuable insights on how teams are reviewing code. So we looked at 6 million pull requests for a 1 year period. All these are merged on GitHub over the past year by about 35,000 developers. And we wanted to make sure that this was actually meaningful PRs written by real humans. So we filtered for active committers. We wanted to make sure that they were from GitHub orgs that had active committers, they've all authorized Graphite. These aren't personal repos; these are all organizations. And then we did a lot to filter out any sort of like automations or GitHub bots to make sure that these are actually written by developers. This is one of the things that, as I was saying in the beginning, that we're really excited by the data set that we have here and our ability to really see this at scale. This is really something that we've spent a lot of time digging into, and Sarah on our data science team has really pulled out some interesting facts from this. So without further ado, let's dive into what the report looks like. So we'll talk about basically 6 key insights for the State of Code Review of 2024. And insight number 1 here is that small companies review and ship code about 3 times faster than larger companies. On this chart, you can see a little bit more like the number, how how the percentage of PRs, and this is actually percent of PRs merged without any sort of code review, declines as org size increases. Like, when you have 2 or 5 engineers, a lot of it is just like push to main, push to main without any review. Obviously, that goes away as you have things like SOC 2 compliance and just general best practices that you want to bring in as your org size increases. But at a small company, generally it takes and what Kenny, do you remember what we defined as the cutoff for small company here versus large?
Yeah, I think the small company was under org size of 10, I believe. 20, 20.
Perfect. So
Yeah, 20, sorry.
perfect. So for many companies that are like seed or Series A and below, you know these companies are taking about 4 hours that we see from when they open the PR to when they merge it, which is a pretty good turnaround time. Like that's fairly fast as far as as far as where what we see in the data. Looking at companies that are greater than 20 committers, though, you see that this jumps to 13 hours. So it's a pretty big difference as you've seen as an organization takes on more engineers, more overhead. The amount of time that it takes to actually get a PR through review and merge, goes up pretty substantially. And this is really one of the key insights of Graphite, and why we started this company in the first place, is that code review isn't that painful when it's only 2, 5, 10 engineers, but when you get to a company at the scale of like a Meta or a Google, where many of the tools that inspired Graphite were created, all of a sudden this starts to become a much more painful part of the review process. And something that we see we see really start to be painful at those scales. Many of the very largest companies built their own tooling for this. Everyone else, though, still has all these like Series B, C, companies with hundreds or even thousands of engineers still aren't at the scale where it makes sense to build their own tooling in house, but still need to still run into the pains of scaling that you start to see as you add more process and overhead. So it's something that if we believe with Graphite, there's an opportunity to help all of these companies work more efficiently, get closer to that like 4 hours from open to merge than the 13 plus hours that we see. And that's really what we see the opportunity for a tool like this to kind of give every company the ability to work at startup speed. So that's kind of fact number one from our report. Fact number two is something that's pretty interesting. Won't be a surprise to many of you all. TypeScript really is the new JavaScript at startups. So we've seen over the past year 21% more small companies, and here we're defining small as less than 50 engineers. Has TypeScript has increased by quite a bit, and you can see in the chart quarter over quarter. This is over the past 2 years. What this looks like in terms of like TypeScript's rise and JavaScript's fall. Interestingly, though, what we're seeing at larger companies of 100 plus engineers is that they're actually seeing a decline in the usage of TypeScript, which may be counterintuitive at first, but I think it makes sense when you think about how for large companies they're generally tending to use more traditionally established languages like Java or Python. It's harder for them to adopt a lot of like newer languages and everything around the TypeScript ecosystem. And this is something that we've seen, even as as companies scale and they're moving off of Node, trying to move to like more performant at scale like languages for their servers. This is something that we've seen kind of repeating at many of the larger companies here. Smaller companies, though, for really seeing like the rise of TypeScript and the whole ecosystem around it. That's been a fantastic development in terms of helping companies, helping projects get from like zero to one in probably as short of a time as we've ever been able to on the web. So something that we're really excited about. Obviously, looking ahead, like public perception on static types. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the discourse on this. obviously we came from a world of like Ruby, JS, Python. It used to be more of the industry standard. I think Go did a good job of kind of like establishing static typing as and the benefits of static typing more broadly, making them safer, making them more reliable, and just making it easier to test. Facebook basically did the same thing internally with Hack, adding static types to PHP. And then TypeScript was sort of the logical next step for that for the JavaScript ecosystem. Nobody really wants an outage because of a type error. You should really know before code runs in production that you have everything typed correctly. So it's really no surprise to us, and given both the general industry trends and also just the from first principles the benefits of using TypeScript over JavaScript. Looking at some of the projects that have been built in TypeScript, obviously there's some great open source tools, and many companies on top of this. So VS Code, TypeORM, Angular, Babylon, and of course Graphite here as well. We use it across our front end, our back end, even our CLI is written in TypeScript. So every engineer, and this is like a great advantage for us, in that it means basically every engineer can contribute across every surface of our product with a very fast ramp up. And it's something that we really pride ourselves here is making sure that every person who's part of our company on the engineering team can work across each of our product surfaces. So that's number two. Obviously, exciting for the TypeScript ecosystem to see that rise happening. There's some other studies that have shown that, and we definitely see that in our data. Looking to now at the third point, thinking about monorepos and polyrepos. This is something that we talked about a lot here at Graphite. Monorepos, interestingly, I think monorepos has definitely been one of the more one of the types of companies that or types of repo setups that have benefited the most from tools like Graphite. Monorepos like often mean that you have more and more engineers that are trying to merge changes into one. The benefits of something like stacking are amplified when you have like potential merge conflicts or many engineers working on the same surface at once. It's something where being able to ship small incremental changes minimizes the chances of conflicts and helps you stay unblocked and move faster here. But obviously, looking at like monorepos versus polyrepos, it's not without some costs. So for monorepos, generally we see that for median monorepo developers, it takes about 16.4 hours to merge a PR. For polyrepos, though, this is only taking about 10 hours. And if you look at like the median number of PRs at monorepo companies, it's something like 2,600 per year. This can mean about 18,000 additional hours that are spent merging PRs every year in monorepos. Obviously, different companies have different architectures and different needs here. But I think the key thing to think about is that even though you see this disparity, it's not necessarily like a blanket condemnation of the monorepo architecture. Really, if you think about like monorepos versus polyrepos, there's other ways that you can kind of like make up that advantage or make up that efficiency by switching to a monorepo. It will obviously take longer to merge when you're testing like many changes at once. You'll have more monorepos will inherently have more conflicts. But there's also a lot of overhead that you avoid in terms of like synchronizing releases, synchronizing across changes, like merging it in the right order across different parts across different repos, and making sure that you're submitting changes to the right places. a lot of this, a lot of these advantages of monorepos still exist, and there's a reason why companies like Google and Facebook have still moved over to the monorepo setup versus polyrepos. Uh, a lot of this though doesn't come without costs. Many companies have to build tooling. Even like simple Git operations like cloning can take a lot longer in a monorepo setup at a company, companies of that scale. Things like tools like shallow clones, Git LFS. There's been a lot of tooling built around around the Git ecosystem just to enable teams to work with monorepos at scale. So this is something that we see a lot of here at Graphite. A lot of the largest companies using Graphite today have moved more towards monorepo setups, and have required a set of tools around this to help them work with monorepos effectively at scale. Obviously, the debate rages on, though. It's not a day goes by without some sort of monorepo discussion here on Hacker News. It's something that we see we see quite a lot of, and really, I think the answer is like it depends, as it usually does. It will depend on like your company's setup, on on the shape and size of your repo, what type of files you're working with, surfaces. It really does. There really is no like one definitive answer. Although I think what we're seeing more broadly is that companies are moving away from the like microservices, thousands of repos architectures, and moving more towards like a few larger repos, or potentially like just one repo where they make all their changes. Largely powered by some of these changes, these like improvements in tooling that have enabled this shift in the past few years. So that's it for monorepos versus polyrepos. Moving on to the fourth key insight is that, and we've talked about this a little bit in some of our blog posts before, but really seeing this reiterated again in the data is that the ideal PR is 50 lines or smaller. If you want to ship quickly, if you don't want to be caught in multiple review cycles and testing that takes a lot of time, keep your PRs to 50 lines or shorter. Now, obviously, stacking is a great way to do this. It's one of the key advantages of like working with stack changes versus writing a large PR. This is something that we've kind of really wanted to like help teams work more effectively with from the beginning, and is really one of the biggest advantages of a tool like Graphite. So if we look at the data in more detail, a 50-line PR will take about 100 minutes to go from publish to merge. Once you're over, for the median PR over 50 lines, this will take 19 hours. So this is really a pretty stark increase. Interestingly, when you go over 3,000 lines of code, the median time to merge actually goes back down again, which largely is indicative of reviewers just rubber stamping. Many of those changes are going to be like larger refactors. To some extent, it's going to be like code gen or some kind of automated refactor that developers running. So this is something that we see this pretty stark increase as your PR size goes up. Like the time to merge it will also go up. One of the cool parts that we see here is that by volume, if you go back to the chart for one second, one of the cool parts here is by volume, about half of all the PRs written today are already under 50 lines for repos where we have where Graphite is authorized, and this is something that we're really trying to constantly move that metric down. The Graphite Insights page will give you like a percentage of PRs for your organization that are 50 lines of code or fewer, and this is something that we recommend pretty much all companies start to track and try to minimize as much as possible if you want your development team to work as efficiently as possible. Moving on to kind of the benefits of small PRs again. This is something that we reiterate constantly here at Graphite is small PRs are easier to review, they're faster to merge, they get reviewed more thoroughly. I mean, everyone's seen the like 500 lines of code looks good to me meme. This is something that we see play out time and time again. Uh, and it results in shorter feedback cycles. Like the time to review a smaller PR tends to be a lot lower than the time to review a larger PR in the process. Implementing this isn't easy. It's something that really does require a change in mindset and practice when designing code changes. It often requires shifting away from building like large monolithic PRs that contain whole features and moving to a workflow like stacking that helps you break up those larger changes into smaller pieces. This is something that does take time and conscious effort to move teams towards, but we see again going back to some of our larger customers. We see teams like Asana where every engineer saves 7 hours a week using Graphite. It's the type of thing where that is the type of magnitude of time savings and efficiency gains that teams get by moving away from the monolithic feature PRs and moving more towards small stack PRs. Obviously this isn't a one. This isn't like a black and white type of thing. One of the common objections to small PRs that we hear is that many that it's hard to get context on a broader change if it's spread across multiple PRs in a stack. Obviously that is like a factor where working with stack PRs, I think it's hard to sometimes see the context, and it is yet another argument for tooling that enables you to get that context. So with Graphite, for instance, we make it really easy, both in GitHub and especially so on the Graphite dashboard, to see when a PR is part of a stack. We have a visualization of all the other changes that are related. You can easily navigate up and down and see the whole context of the stack of changes, not just the PR that you're on. And this is something that it is sort of a difficult part of working with stack PRs right now. It's something that we're really actively working to improve with Graphite. And similarly, I think the most common reason why teams don't stack today is that working with a stack of PRs is really painful in vanilla Git. Every time that you make a change, let's say that you had a stack of 10 dependent PRs, if you had to make a change at the PR at the very base of that stack, you then have to rebase 9 times and basically perform the same rebase at every single PR that you've stacked on top. This was the very first thing that we built with a Graphite CLI was automating the recursive rebases, making it so that you only need to resolve the same conflict once, and then propagate that up through everything else that you've written on top of it. This is something where we think tooling makes a big difference and can make a workflow, can really take a workflow from being very difficult or really cumbersome to being something that's like super easy to use every day and can become part of your workflow on a daily basis. All right, moving on to the fifth point. Almost reaching the end of the report. Um, you know, Fifth point here was around CI time, and this is something as we've talked about sort of the authoring process. We've talked about review. The testing and deployments are sort of the two next parts of the outer loop and of how code gets from local machine to deployed out to production. And CI is a huge component of that. It's something that we've seen pretty much every team now has adopted some sort of CI practice, and is becoming more and more of a blocker and of like a key component of the release process. And here at Graphite, we look a lot at how much time teams spend on CI. Interestingly, similar to review, large companies are spending a lot more time on CI than the small ones. So, for a large company, we'll see median PR. Overall, the median PR takes about 22 minutes of CI runtime. But if we look at companies with over 50 engineers, they're spending nearly twice as much time on their CI runs for top quartile PRs. Really, really interesting to see how this scales with company scale. Obviously, part of this is expected. The larger a company you have, the more tests you're going to have, the more complex your projects become, the more infrastructure that you need to spin up in order to run these tests. So this is something that we kind of expect to increase. But we do think that there's that does become a point where where CI time becomes really detrimental to the review to the release process, where you have engineers waiting for like hours potentially to see if tests pass, and then if they have to make a change in response to those tests, then having to go through that repeated cycle of like iteration testing, seeing if it's still failing or not, and then going back and forth there. So this is something that we spend a lot of time on, and that increasingly as Graphite becomes more than just a code review platform, is something that we're really interested in. One thing to note here is that this is notoriously bad for mobile developers in particular, where you have to spin up like Mac instances to run tests. This is something where we've seen for the teams that are using Graphite on mobile in particular, one of the most common complaints that we see. Fantastic. And then moving on to the last key point from the report, is that looking at large companies, they're almost twice as likely to use a merge queue than a smaller company. So once you get over 100 engineers, it more than doubles here as companies cross that 100 engineer threshold in terms of propensity to use some sort of merge queue tooling. So as we look at this, it makes sense that as you scale that you need more tooling around this, particularly for monorepo companies. We spoke to this earlier, where as monorepo companies scale, the amount of time that it takes from when the PR is open to when it merges also tends to increase quite a bit. As your engineering team grows, that becomes more and more painful as it's multiplied across many engineers, and every engineer you add working on the same repo, adds more possibility that by the time your change merges, that there's actually been other changes that have merged ahead of you in between. You pass CI, somebody else merges in a change that breaks yours, and then yours merges and ends up breaking the main branch. So this is something that most companies using monorepos will hit at scale. One of the things that Google study found in terms of like indicators of individual engineering productivity was number of changes shipped, and the amount of time that it took for those changes to actually land. This is something that large companies focus on a lot, and merge queues are a great tool that can kind of help teams reduce the amount of time that's spent iterating on and fixing merge conflicts, and let them continue to scale monorepos beyond just a small number of engineers. If we look at taking a step back, like what is a merge queue fundamentally? Really, this is it's a developer tool that ensures code is being merged. It doesn't have a semantic conflict. This is a conflict that's possible to merge, but will cause a regression. Examples of this are like when somebody makes a field required in a form, for instance. And the merge queue, the way that it handles this is by rerunning tests on each change before it's merged into the main branch. So That way, the way that these semantic conflicts can be introduced is that you'll run tests on your code. You'll run tests on your code when you open the PR. Those tests will pass. You'll then merge in your code once that's approved. The difficulty there is that when you're in a monorepo, you could have hundreds of other engineers that are also have open PRs that are trying to merge in their changes. So you easily end up in a situation where you have another change that merged in before yours, which will cause a semantic conflict. You can still then merge your change in without it causing a conflict at the merge. But then when you actually go to run your code in production, you know that this is gonna cause problems. So at scale, really, what we see is that merge queues become somewhat inevitable. Teams just reach the rate of code changes where they're going to have these conflicts. They're going to run into this more and more frequently. Especially when you get over 100 engineers, we see that this starts to happen quite a bit. Companies like Google, Facebook, MongoDB, even for us here at Graphite, we've built our own merge queue that we now offer to every company that uses our tooling. This is something that we wanted to that we think is just a key part of the developer tool chain going forward, especially for teams that are using monorepos that want to work with a high volume of code changes and be able to do so more efficiently. This is something we've invested a lot in over the past year. It's used by now by many of our customers, both large and small. Even for smaller teams on Graphite, they're finding that the benefits of having a tool coordinating their merges and where they can just kind of like set and forget changes to be merged in is something that's really beneficial to them, especially as they're working with stacks where we're coordinating merging 20 PRs in at once is something that's going to just take a lot of time manually. So really exciting to see the rise of merge queues a little bit more broadly. And in general, I think this is kind of a good. In general, what we see is that more teams are employing a lot of the tooling and practices that we set out at Graphite to make ubiquitous. And although it's not, we're not quite at the point where this is every team. By no means is every team use a monorepo, stack their changes, use a merge queue. We're seeing that by and large, a lot of teams are moving, especially for startups, are moving more in that direction. And you have kind of this modern developer stack emerging that's largely follows a lot of the principles that that companies like Facebook and Google have figured out years ago for letting teams scale to thousands of engineers working in the same repo. And this is something that's like really exciting for us here. Is a lot of these core theses are really playing out, and we're doing our part to kind of contribute to these broader trends that hopefully will help give the industry tools that that help development teams do more with a smaller number of folks and really create great products faster than ever. So that's what we've those are the 6 key insights from the State of Code Review 2024. Happy to take questions on this, and we have a few folks from the Graphite team as well in the room on Kenny's side who worked on the report who can help jump in as well.
Yeah, it looks like we have some questions already. One of the first ones here. One question there. Is there any plans to bring something like a stack context in Graphite? Kind of an overall perspective description of the stack. Meryl?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we're thinking about a lot more in terms of how we can make the stack more present in all of the Graphite interfaces. We introduced the like Graphite stack create interface last year, so that was kind of the first time when we really brought the stack front and center in the Graphite interface. we're thinking about ways. This is another great potential application of AI for us. Is we've experimented with generating like an overall description or title for the stack. This is something that we're really, we're really excited by, by the opportunity to make the stack like more of a, more of a point in, more of a key part of the Graphite experience, and something that we think will, where we can add a lot of value.
Yeah, totally. The next question here is, I'd love to see trends around code deploys. Feels like the pendulum has swung backwards from continuous deployment to less occasional, safer deploys. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I feel like some of this has to do with like kind of the advent of tooling as well, and it's gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years. With companies like even like GitHub Actions, right, is so much more accessible now. There's so many more CI/CD solutions, and just making it a lot easier for companies to do this, like also safely, and keep that velocity going while still achieving that consistency and integrity.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one thing where we have less, because so much of deployments happens on third-party tooling. This is something where we have a little bit less visibility into from our data set here at Graphite. But obviously, as we think a little bit more about like the rest of the development cycle, it's something that's interesting to us. We're looking at ways that we can help teams like deploy as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
We got someone pointing out another interesting paper here. One I have not read, but yeah, Uber is another like huge proponent of this and huge proponent of using merge queues. They also were one of the early adopters of stacking as well. There's another great article by one of our friends, Gergely Oros, around stacking, where he does a great job of explaining how they use it at Uber and how it can be beneficial to your team. So yeah, all these huge, large companies at scale are adapting these similar practices. And that's, again, one of the things here we stress at Graphite is that we don't think that these practices should be gated behind these huge companies that, have millions of dollars to invest in this internal tooling. And we want to give you these same practices so that like, anyone can use these because they really do help, especially at this huge rate of, code change volume that especially we're going to be seeing now with the, advent of all these AI coding tools. Yeah. Meryl, anything else to add there?
No, I mean, I think you said it well, and that a lot of our mission here is to like really, if you look at like companies like Uber and companies of that scale, like all of them have tens to hundreds of engineers staffed on just on their internal developer platform teams, and I think our real vision with Graphite is to basically be your developer platform team for the next wave of companies. Like how do we look at like the next wave of startups and prevent them from having to invest like so much time and energy into something that's like really not their core not their core business. One kind of funny example of this was I won't name names, but we had a recent example of working with a company where they've built their own like vendor procurement tool in house, and it makes and it was really buggy. It's like it's clearly not it's nowhere near like a core problem for this company to build. This is something that and this happens in developer tooling as well. Like you get these cases where like every company is reinventing the wheel and isn't able to give it the type of resources that that they need to build a proper platform there. And this is something where we think that by focusing just on this and providing like the best in class tool for companies that want to ship fast, we can really help every team have basically like a first class developer experience out of the box, even before necessarily like before they've really reached scale.
Oh, a hard-hitting question. When can we get access to the AI reviewer you mentioned earlier? The people are hungry for it, Meryl.
We'll have to see what we can do there. Shoot us a DM afterwards, and we'll see if we can get you into the first cohort. It's not we haven't yet shared it with alpha users more broadly, but if it's something that you're interested in, we can see what we can do.
Nicholas says, one missing feature with competitions is this concept of coordinating merges across repos. Any plans on that?
That's a good question. We have a feature on our roadmap that we've talked about for some time around manual dependencies, which basically takes the idea of stacks. In a stack that you have like dependencies between between branches. Basically extends that idea further so that you can set dependencies between branches across repos. So this is something where you could have you could use this in order to coordinate like merging changes in at the same time across many repos. It's something that we do have on the roadmap and that we're prioritizing, and this will actually this will then be respected by our merge queues and all the other tooling that we offer downstream. So stay tuned. I don't have a firm ETA on when that will land, but definitely stay tuned for more work on supporting polyrepos here as well.
We got a question from Petro. Any plans on integrations with issue/bug tracking tools that right now focus on integrating tracking against a single PR or branch?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, like thinking about the mapping between each branch, between each ticket to or each issue to like the branch or the stack is a key part of it. This is something fortunately we're pretty close with. We're pretty close with a lot of the issue tracking companies. Kari from Linear, we're fortunate to have as an investor. So a lot of of work that we were thinking about here in terms of how we can make the stack more of a first class both like how do we make the stack more of a first class part of of the issue of like the experience on the issue tracking side, and then also how do we really bring like rich details from tickets and tasks from issue trackers into Graphite as well. So definitely more to come on this soon. I'm excited to share more updates here, and likely in later in Q3 and Q4 of this year.
And we got one final, another hard-hitting question for you. How are y'all making money? Will Graphite survive 5+ years into the future? Meryl, you want to take this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're really fortunate here at Graphite to be able to like work with many of the largest and fastest moving engineering teams out there. Teams like like Datadog, Snowflake, Figma, many others. Ramp was one of our very earliest customers. Some of the largest and fastest growing engineering teams out there. We count as paying customers. So we're really happy with to be able to work with and help accelerate teams like that every single day. The cool part about this is that by providing something that's helping these world class engineering teams work faster, we provide them a ton of value. They're then obviously they're then paying for Graphite as a service, and there's I think that we create all we can really do here is like try to create as much value as we possibly can for these teams, and then capture a small fraction of it in order to really fund continued development of Graphite. And from that standpoint, I think we've 4x'd our paid user base so far this year, and almost I think it's more than that on terms of a revenue from a revenue side. The company is really growing nicely, and excited to really start to scale. And obviously, our one thing that we've really noted here is that most of our revenue is going to come from these larger enterprises as we scale. So I think it was a month or two ago, we introduced our startup program so that basically any team that has 10 or fewer collaborators on their GitHub org can now use Graphite for free. Once you have 11, once you cross that 10 collaborator threshold, like then we consider you to be more of an established company and can start paying for Graphite. But that's really kind of how we've focused on enterprises and larger companies as our customers. And hope to then also make Graphite more broadly available to every startup that's like just getting off the ground.
Yeah. One more question here from Nicholas. He says, I really like what you guys are doing. I can't be more excited on what's to come. Speaking about that, what are the next features coming right up? Any sneak peeks? Oh, and we had Steven answer, actually. Okay. Steven says, a big upcoming feature is merge rules, basically more flexible code owners and branch protection rules. Yeah, so that's one thing coming right down the pipeline. Really excited about that. Meryl, anything else to add here?
Yeah, I think there's a ton that we have in the works around just kind of across the platform. So, like obviously automations we're continuing to invest more in. So, if this making more capabilities for our if this then that for pull requests. Merge rules is another key piece that Stephen talked about. We're investing a lot in our AI reviewer. We're also going to be shipping like more and more improvements to the core Graphite experience as well. So look for updates coming to one things that we just released for the command line tool is the ability to work with multiple trunk branches. A lot of larger teams and mobile teams will have setups that require multiple trunk branches at once, and we just released I believe the beta for working with multiple trunk branches. We have a few other like different workflows and quality of life features that you'll see us release there. And then as we scale, I think a lot of the focus will be on obviously on these features like automations, AI reviewer, the merge queue, merge rules, and just the entire ecosystem of tools that help you work faster and work with a large number of small changes as at scale.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that brings us right to the end here, unless someone has any last questions they want to sneak in. Otherwise, we just also want to point out that we have the full report available at gt.dev/full report. You can check it out here, share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers. And just wanted to thank you guys again so much for coming and exploring, these metrics with us and these stats. We found some stuff that was surprising to us, and hopefully it was interesting to you folks. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.